Hello, everyone.
Hi there, listeners.
This is Amanda.
And this is Rita.
And you're listening to
I Don't Know Her,
the podcast where we talk about women you've probably never heard of.
But you should have.
And now you will. That's our guarantee.
Check the box.
We did it, guys. We fixed everything.
The world is okay now. You can leave your house.
We've told you about women that you didn't hear about before, and now everything is good. We have that power.
Yes, we do. Well, you got a little something to share with me today.
Yeah. So the other day, I just wanted to take a look at the iTunes rankings. So they tell you, like, if you go, it's harder to do on your phone, but on your desktop, you can go onto the Apple Podcast app and actually see the top 200 shows in every category.
Oh, nice.
So we are in two main categories. One is history, and the other is society and culture.
Okay.
Because those are the things we talk about the
Yes,
most.
Absolutely.
And we are not in the top 200. We should be, but we are not. But I was scrolling, and I get to the bottom of the society and culture podcast listings, and then this one is there.
Cumtown. So cum spelt C-U-M. And the logo is really drippy.
Yeah. Go ahead and read that description.
Official podcast of the Cum Boys, hosted by Nick and Starvos, two professional comedians, folks. Also featuring Adam Freeland, the girl of the show. What? What do they do?
Does it even matter?
And this is...
So for folks at home, she is scrolling through their episode list.
Yeah.
Why don't you read some of the titles and the descriptions?
Walt Disney. Didn't he fuck my ass? Ooh, give me good pussy. Shut up, man.
So
I don't like any of this.
So Rita is listing. So the actual episode name is "Ooh, Give Me Pussy," and the entire description is "Shut up, man."
Okay.
So I show you that because I find it infuriating. Infuriating because of how much work and time and energy that we put into our show. And something like that can be ranked hundreds of spots higher. What do you think about that?
It's disheartening, but I'm not surprised by much stuff anymore. Like, I just kind of, things that don't make sense or shouldn't make sense are just facts now. So
And I'm not saying anything, like, I haven't listened to their show. It could be fucking wonderful. Who knows? But I just know, based on my experiences in life, that these are just some guys sitting around having a podcast where they just chat about things they think are funny, and most of it has to do with women and sex. Right?
Probably.
And I think maybe it was just the day and time. Maybe it was just whatever. But I immediately was like, this is exactly what we're talking about on our show all the time. Here are two people who are of multiple intersecting marginalized identities.
Yeah.
Going to length after length after length to create good content that is smart and funny and interesting and has a greater purpose. But if we just called ourselves the Cum Town, we'd be fine.
We'd be fine. And the descriptions that are thoughtfully written out, we could just put, shut up, man.
Yeah, we could just put, do me in the ass. And I guess we would get more shares and likes.
Season 4, we're gonna
rebrand.
We're gonna rebrand, and we'll come back with that.
I do you know what I'm saying? Like,
yes.
It is the epitome of what we are almost always talking about on this show. about these incredible, phenomenal women who've done all of this incredible, great work that went unnoticed while mediocre white men got all the credit. And I'm like, oh, God, this is just exactly
We're
what
working
it's like.
on it. We're reversing the cycle.
Yes, we're trying at least.
We're trying.
So I have a request from our listeners. We need you to really pump us up somewhere. You need to start liking and sharing and subscribing and putting it in your friends' phones. Just take them right out of their hands.
Just take it and get in there.
Find our show, make them subscribe to it, even if they don't even know. Your mom doesn't even know what a podcast is, all right? She's not going to notice that it keeps downloading on her phone. Just let it happen. Just let it happen.
Saturation.
But honestly, you've probably heard, if you're a podcast listener, which some of you probably are and some of you are not, honest to shit, the best thing you can do for the little podcast that could is to, review it, to share it, to like it, to follow it on social media, to subscribe to Patreon. Like all of these things that we talk to you guys about doing when we're on the show, it's what everybody talks about because it's what everyone needs in order to be successful.
Yes. And thank you already to people who are already subscribing and giving us a little something that they can through our Patreon. Like I think slowly but surely that should be one of our goals. We're going to get on that chart.
Yeah, that's the thing I would love. I don't care if we are number 200.
Me neither.
Top 200 seems fucking great. Even if it's just in a very specific, very niche category like history. I help us out. That's what I would like to ask from folks is to, do what you can to help us get to that goal because I do not ever want to see Come Town listed above my fucking show.
May I ask what number Come Town was?
I think it was 200.
Oh, okay. That's the goal.
Yeah, we do not need to get far, okay?
Help us beat Come Town.
Should we just have that
That's
be
a hashtag.
Our new hashtag? Hashtag help us beat Come Town. These poor like guy comedians are gonna be like, what do these bitches want? We want to beat
all
you.
of it.
So that is all I have for today. Do you have anything else you wanted to talk about?
You took the words right out of my mouth.
Okay. Last week's was very, very long, and so I'm going to shut the hell up today.
So are you ready?
I am very ready.
Okay. Do you know who Elizabeth Betty Okino is?
Okino? I have no idea who that is.
She's an American gymnast, inventor of the balance beam named the Okino, and part of the first U.S. Olympic team to bring home an Olympic medal.
Wow. I had no idea.
So Betty was born June 4th in 1975 in Entebbe, Uganda. She's one of two Uganda. Is it Uganda or Uganda?
I've always heard it pronounced Uganda, but maybe you heard it by somebody from Uganda and they said Uganda. I don't know.
I'll say Uganda. Her parents were Frances Okino, who was from Uganda, and her mother was Aurelia from Romania, which I love that name. Her parents were both attending university in Bucharest when they met. Her father was studying veterinary medicine, and her mother was studying to be a teacher. So the two married, and when Frances eventually had to go back to Uganda, Aurelia decided that she was going to go with them, because obviously they want to be together.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that they would have problems there, they knew this when they got there because they were an interracial couple.
Oh, okay. Let's back that train up. So who was what? Like, I mean, not that it really matters, but I think for context of the story, because they meet in Bucharest. Mm-hmm. So he's from Uganda?
He's from Uganda, and he's over there going to school.
Okay.
And she's Romanian.
She's Romanian. Okay.
While in Uganda, the Okinos had a son, Edward, and they had Betty shortly after. When Betty was around 1 year old, her father, Francis, was working as the chief veterinary officer of the Ugandan agricultural department. So her father was very smart.
Yeah.
Very successful, too. While in this position, I'm not quite sure what happened, but it described that her father disagreed and openly disagreed with the dictator that was in power at the time.
Oh.
And obviously dictators don't like that.
No, not so much.
And this drew attention to his family, especially the fact that they were a biracial family. The dictator, who was the person in charge at the time, his name was Idi Amin.
Oh, yeah, Idi Amin.
Have you heard of him?
Yes.
Yeah. Referred to as the butcher of Uganda.
Yes.
He was not a great guy. So he had staged a coup and removed the previous president from power and just put himself in power. He oppressed many ethnic groups that were there because there was different areas, like they referred to them as like Southerners or Northerners. In different regions. There were Kenyans that lived there too. He denied people like basic human rights, trying to oppress people, and he did. And he forced his military to perform extrajudicial killings.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fucked up. That's very fucked up.
During his reign, they estimated probably 200,000 people or more were murdered.
And this is in the late 70s?
This is in the late 70s.
Okay. Because I have heard of Idi Amin a lot, and I knew that he was a bad guy, but I didn't ever know the real story. I know more about like some of the other countries that were having issues of that sort at the time. I don't know anything really about Uganda.
It was a lot of like abusing his power, oppressing his people. His international relations were getting really, really messy because, you know, when you establish relationships with other countries and then you stab them in the back, like people were getting angry at him. Britain had cut all ties off with them and encouraged people who were British there to leave Uganda.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was getting really messy, and it was all about power and control.
Okay. I think we have a good setting, at least.
Yeah. There's a big civil unrest at that time too.
And so her father worked for the government until this point.
Until this point. And I'm going to go into why the Okino family eventually had to leave. So in 1976, Idi Amin was notified that there was a plane with 248 passengers that had been hijacked by a Palestinian nationalist group called the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. Their idea was to land the plane at the Ugandan airport and trade the hostages for Palestinian prisoners. Idi Amin's behavior was becoming very toxic and erratic and dangerous. So he was informed that this plane was hijacked and was going to land there, and he did nothing to stop it and did nothing to help.
What? Mm-hmm. Why? Just because he's a fucker?
Yeah, didn't care. So Israeli soldiers come and begin to raid Entebbe in an effort to rescue the hostages. The Okino's house was 1 mile from where the raid was happening.
Oh, no.
So they're in their home. They can hear bullets hitting the walls of their home and going over the roof of the house.
Terrifying.
Yeah, and you're there with your 2 young children. So when the raid was over, at least 60 people were dead, and Idi Amin's reign tightened even more. He was losing support, like I said, from all of the other countries left and right, and time was running out to like make a decision. Like, do we stay, or it might come to a point where they can't even leave?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, how would they get out eventually?
Yeah. They're
going to shut the country down.
So her mother, Aurelia, she packs the kids up. She takes them to Romania to go stay with their grandmother. The Romanian government also was under a dictator regime at the time. So that was like not as dire a situation.
Yeah, they just went from really awful to bad.
Yeah. little lower on the scale. So Francis had been applying for grants to be able to go and study abroad again, like how he had gone to Bucharest. And through the World Health Organization, he applied and received a grant to go and study for his master's degree at the University of Minnesota, which is like Minnesota.
I know. I mean, that is just wildly different. Wildly different.
I don't even know what's in Minnesota.
Well, Minneapolis.
Is that a good city?
Yeah, it's a great city.
Really? Have you been there?
Well, I've only actually been to the airport part of it, but yeah, I mean, I've been there. But it's, we have a friend from there, who lived there for a long time. And it's got a great music scene. It's pretty diverse. Great art scene.
Ooh.
Beautiful city.
When I think of Minnesota, I can't really picture anything.
I think of the lakes, right?
Okay.
Great Lakes. And also, a lot of Minnesota is pretty rural and very, very cold and gets a ton of snow.
I've heard of that, yes.
Yeah. That's, I mean, I feel like that's fairly accurate. It's like right. Montana, right? The west side is all mountains.
Yep.
And like cool shit. And then the east side is just flat.
Corn.
Cold.
Yep.
And I'm from there, so I can say this with all truth and authenticity. It's not great. It's not great. It's just cold. It's windy. It's flat. It's still pretty, especially in the summer, but it's not like Western Montana.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine going from Uganda to Bucharest to Minnesota.
Yeah.
In the 70s.
Ilhan Omar is from Minnesota.
Oh.
And there is... And I can't remember if it's in Minneapolis. I think it's somewhere else, actually. There is is it Deer? Oh, it's Michigan. Never mind. I was going to say there's a really large Muslim community in Minnesota, but it's actually in Michigan that I'm thinking of, which is Dearborn. But yeah, I still think that there's, like, that makes sense to me. Because that's, like, a lot of those universities, like University of Montana, University of Minnesota, they recruit from other countries to bring folks onto their campuses and faculty and stuff like that.
Well, that's where he ended up going. So he ends up traveling to the U.S. first. Aurelia follows shortly after, and she left her children in Romania with her mother. It wasn't until 15 months later that the kids were brought to the U.S., so they were apart for over a year.
That is, I can't even imagine.
Not seeing the children?
I can't, either way, I can't imagine being a child and have my parents be so far away and for over a year of my life. Like, when you're a child, a year is forever.
Yeah. And they're so little, too. Her and her brother are so small.
Yeah, they're like, what, 2 years old or whatever?
She's 2.5, and I think he's around 3 or 4.
Oh, jeez.
So it's in the back of Francis's mind that he always thought that maybe they'd eventually be able to go back to Uganda, because that is his home. He thought maybe things would someday change or get better. Then he learned that his home that was in Entebbe had been broken into by Ugandan soldiers. They looted their house and they had orders to execute the family. Yeah.
So they just missed it?
Barely missed being murdered. So the Okinos had a price on their head. The fact that they were an interracial couple, the fact that Francis was what I referred to before, a northerner. I'm not really sure. I know that the Southerners had like a lot of money, and the Northerners had a lot of like political pull and a lot of unrest up there. So, I mean, it's just people fighting their own people.
Yeah. Well, it's just the same as, you know, we're currently, I feel like we're in the middle of like an intellectual civil war.
Yeah.
That could very well turn into an actual civil war in this country.
It's a very real possibility.
Yeah. And it's really like urban versus rural. Yeah.
The family decides that they're not going to go back because, I mean, it's too much over there.
It's dangerous.
In 1980, the family applied to receive political asylum, and they settled down in the LaSalle, Peru area of Illinois, which is a very strange name to me.
Yeah.
LaSalle-Peru.
Huh.
Yeah. Oh, I looked it up. I found it on a map. So I was like, okay, it's real. I'm not, making it up. So in this area, Francis became the Illinois Bureau Chief of Poultry and Meat Inspection for the U.S. Department of Agriculture. It's It's a very necessary job.
And very specific.
Yes. So, yeah, he's working for the USDA. It was here that Betty and her brother began to take dance and tap. She and her brother took to it so well, they began to compete. You know, when you see the little kids and they do those little dance competitions.
Oh, I was in one, yeah. Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. What?
Yeah, tap dance? Yeah. Yeah, I did that.
What? Did I just learn a friend fact?
Yeah.
Elaborate.
I took tap for a few years. I loved it. I remember...
Were you living for it?
Oh, I did. However, I was always like the bridesmaid, never the bride situation. And so I never got to be a soloist, which was really a big bummer for me. But I can tell you about one of my outfits that I still remember to this day because I loved it so much. I would wear it all the time after.
What was it?
It was like, first off, it was like a little swimsuit bodysuit thing.
Yeah.
And it was hot pink with black polka dots on it. And it had these black sequins that went down the center. And then you pulled a little tutu on top that had like the satin black like thing with the pink polka dots. Same at the bottom. And I just adored it. I just walked around all the time.
If listeners could see their eyes right now, they're beaming.
Basically, I like anything that glitters. We've had this conversation before, and it had sequins all over it. Okay? So I thought, and I just thought it was the cutest thing. But then the soloists came out in their outfits, and I was like, I've been cheated. Because they had these like chiffon white, beautiful flowing outfits with like hot pink sequins here and there. It was so elegant. And I was like, and one of the kids in the soloist was the same age as me.
Oh.
So like most of the time it's older kids, but she was the same age as me. And I was like, what?
Do a striptease move where you throw the marbles on the ground, take a player out.
Yeah, showgirls. That's showgirls.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's showgirls.
Sorry, I had that wrong.
Know me.
Striptease was
Demi Moore. Oh, she looks so good.
Back on the road.
Good in that movie.
Back on track. We're getting way off track.
So yes, like our tap dance sideshow. Okay.
So they began to compete. They ended up taking home a national championship for tap dance, and it was like a 9 to 11-year-old group. And around this time, Betty is watching gymnastics and taking interest, especially with one gymnast in particular. Probably somebody you've heard of, Mary Lou Retton.
Yay! So I used to love gymnastics. Like,
so did I.
Gymnastics and figure skating. I watched it all the time.
Saturday mornings.
It was like everything. I couldn't wait for the Olympics every year.
I remember Mary Lou Retton. Betty watched her take the 1984 Olympics where she won all-around gold medals, an achievement that made her pretty much like single-handedly one of the most popular gymnasts in the world.
Yeah, one of the most acclaimed for sure.
She was like, I want that. I want to do that. I want to be that. So there were no gyms around where they lived, though. And there was like no gym, let alone there was no coach to be able to teach her. So her mom did something kind of weird, in my opinion. Let me know if you think this is weird. Her mother would go to gyms, like multiple gyms, from gym to gym, and she would watch the coaches and take notes of what they were doing. And then she would come home and she would teach Betty. Yeah.
Wait, why didn't she just take Betty to the other coaches?
I think maybe because she was in school or something, or
it could have been also a financial barrier because that shit's very expensive.
They did say that they had to scrape some pennies together for most of her training that she ends up doing in the future.
Well, I find it wild that her mother would even have the skills to be able to translate what she saw into coaching.
Yeah, that's what I kind of wondered if her mother had been a gymnast too. And I looked it up, but I actually couldn't find much information about her parents. But it didn't say, it would have mentioned if her mother was a gymnast, it would make note of that.
They would. And also the likelihood of her being a gymnast in Romania. Well, actually Romania had a pretty good team at one point, but that would, maybe she had some lessons here and there, but probably wasn't like anything above and beyond.
Well, she taught her some little things here and there, but obviously, like, she needed to get proper training. Her mother admitted, like, I can only do so much. Like, I can't teach her to skill where she wants to go. So the family decides that it's probably better to get her into an actual program. So they do, but they have to move. So the family picks up again and moves to Elmhurst. It's about an hour and a half away from where their house was in LaSalle, Peru, and closer to the Chicago area.
Yeah. I'm familiar with the name Elmhurst, so I thought it must be closer to Chicago.
So there, Betty began training in a gym called the Illinois Gymnastics Institute with a trainer named Todd Gardner. Here she trained with Gardner for about 4 years until abruptly her mother removes her from the program. She said that Betty wasn't achieving what she should with Gardner. So I don't think he was maybe paying as much attention to her or maybe limiting her in some ways, but her mother was like,
this isn't enough.
This isn't enough. There was another coach that her mother wanted her to work with, and his name was Bella Caroli.
Yeah. Caroli. Know him.
He's the godfather.
Guy.
He's the guy.
Wasn't he gosh, he was the coach of someone.
Carrie Strug.
Yes, Carrie Strug. That's who it was.
So Bella was a Romanian coach who was at the time changing the face of gymnastics. He had an extremely centralized program. He would see what your strengths were and he would zero in on that. And he was coaching in a traditional Romanian style, which is more of like a very classical style. Athletes coming out of his program were excelling, like Nadia Comaneci, and Betty's inspiration, Mary Lou Renton. He had coached her too.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
The only catch was, though, to work with Bella, Betty was going to have to move to Houston.
Oh, I didn't know he was all the way in Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a little far away from Illinois.
Yeah, that's a skip and a jump. But she did. And there was a fellow gymnast that said, Betty can move in with us and then they'll train together. And so she moved in with this family. And her ex-coach, Todd Gardner, was a little salty when Betty left.
I bet.
He said that after being coached by Bella, that her routines looked watered down. Is what he said, and that she didn't look any better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
biased much?
I mean, I've never heard of you, and I have heard of him.
Yes.
So,
well, Betty disagreed, and she said that she was actually very classy about this, how she worded it. She said Gardner helped her become an elite athlete. She just felt that Bella built her up better in a different way. Like, she didn't go there, which I thought was very nice.
Yeah, very classy.
Very classy. So she went from a full school day and 3-hour training sessions to part-time schooling and 6 hours of training a day.
6 hours of training?
6 hours.
God, the thing that's so bad for your body, I feel like.
Yeah, that's a lot for a child. I mean, she is a child.
Yeah. How old is she at this point?
At this point, she's probably about 14.
Okay.
There was a lot of competition in the gym too, he's getting the best of the best.
Yeah.
And there were people there that had already won competitions, had already taken home medals. So Betty said it pushed her to train harder because she's a competitor. She wanted to be seen. And she is 14 at this time. She wins the 20th all around in the junior national championships. She was second all around and first on the balance beam in the senior U.S. gymnastics championships. And she earned a place on the U.S. team where she was with the best gymnasts. Crowley said this about Betty's competing. I don't think Betty got the scores she deserved because she was so unexpected. I don't remember anyone who made this much progress in such a short amount of time. And when Bella said she wasn't what they expected, I was wondering if it had to do with her race.
I was just wondering that myself.
Because there was no other black girls on the team. And so when she would go to competitions, I feel like, does she stick out?
Does she stick out?
Yeah.
And it's those specific sports that we've just talked about, the figure skating and gymnastics, were pretty white.
Very.
I remember Saria Bonali, who was a black figure skater from France.
Oh, yeah.
Incredible.
Amazing.
And she just never got the recognition she deserved. But I know a lot more about figure skating than I do about gymnastics, but I think that a lot of the politics in those two sports are very similar. And especially because they're so heavily focused on girls' bodies.
Yeah, and Saria was the one who did the backflip, right?
Yes, she did the standing
ice skates.
Standing, like, not a backflip, she did like a back cartwheel type situation because her legs were still straight the whole time. It was incredible while skating. She was my favorite.
Yeah.
I remember one competition, she was actually disqualified for doing that move.
Yeah, because they were saying that it wasn't
in the technical skill or whatever. But it was really because she was doing something nobody had ever done before and doing it well.
Yeah.
And they just didn't know what to do with her.
They poo-pooed it because it was not traditional. Yeah.
But I know that in figure skating, if you didn't have the right outfits and go to the right coaches and have the right music and do the right moves, it didn't matter how good you were.
Yeah.
You could get marked down every single time because style is one of the components. And that happens in gymnastics too.
Yeah.
I remember there was a gymnast just a couple of years ago who got marked down because the judges didn't like her music because she chose hip hop.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that at this point, because it's like, the 80s?
Yeah.
There's obviously racism. And there's a classism that's happening here. I would say there's some stuff going on there when he says they didn't notice her.
Yeah.
That ties back to our theme from last time about being invisible.
Yes. Also, she was bigger than most gymnasts. Most were about 4 feet, 5 inches. 70 to 80 pounds.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Those are like miniature people.
Yeah. And Betty was 5'4" and 85 pounds.
Oh my God, that is so small.
That's still tiny.
And just for reference, I'm 5'5", and I weigh a lot more than that.
85 pounds.
That would be like, I would not even exist at 85 pounds.
I mean, I consider her small, but she was taller, and they said
taller for sure. 5'4" is tall.
Her style during routines was extremely controlled. She was very graceful. As you watch her perform, you could see she's very methodical, and there are hints of her dance background in there. Her athleticism and concentration looks very adult. Like watching her, which I will show you a video of her, she doesn't look like a teenager to me, just with her focus that's in her face. There was another thing that Betty had up her sleeve. She was fluent in Romanian, and her coaches didn't know it.
And they're Romanian.
Yes.
Oh, no.
So her coaches would discuss her and the other girls, and Betty would listen and didn't let them know that she understood what they were saying.
What does she do with the information?
She would use it to get better at her game, and she would actually tell the other girls, too, what the coaches were saying about them.
Oh, I bet that was pretty shady.
Yes. The coaches...
That's some shady girl shit.
Yeah. Eventually, the coaches found out. And so then they swiftly started speaking Hungarian instead of Romanian on the floor.
But, I mean, how crazy is it that they all know enough languages to be able to switch between them?
Switch another one, yeah.
Oh, those two don't work because you understand those two, so I'm going to switch to my third language.
Hungarian.
Just going to throw some Hungarian in there.
In 1990, she took home gold at the U.S. Championships, and the following year at the same World Championship, Betty revealed a new move she had been working on. It was a difficult triple pirouette on the balance beam, something that had never been done before. It was so unique that her coach, Bella, applied to the International Gymnastics Federation that it be admitted, recognized, and trademarked.
Wow. And that also is, like we were just talking about earlier with Saria Bonali doing that backflip, that also protects her so that will count the next time she does a routine.
Yes, it will count towards points for her. So the Federation did accept the move and named it simply the Okino, so it's named after her.
That's cool.
And it can now be used and judged throughout routines. So I'm going to show you the video of when she did this move for the first time.
Oh, I'm so excited.
So she's going to do it. Perfect.
Wow. I love when she's on her hands and her hips are moving, but it's like,
Isn't that insane?
yeah, she has so much control of her core. So that's incredible. It's an incredible move.
Yeah, the control that she had and that it was just perfect. So the pirouette is she's spinning on one foot and spins around 3 times and then puts out a foot and puts it perfectly straight on the beam in front of her.
Yeah, the absolute control that she has in that moment is, I mean, when she does the spin, and it's a fast pirouette.
Yeah.
Like, imagine if you're watching a skater do a turn. Like, it's like that. It is so fast. Her pirouette is so fast.
Can you see how the dance is in there, though?
Oh,
in
for
her
sure.
movements?
She looked like a dancer. As I was saying, like, she really is able to also do isolation, which is a really hard thing to do as a dancer. It's very popular in hip-hop dancing right now and has been for like the last 10 years. But isolation is when you can isolate one part of your body and move it and not the other parts of your body. And so she does that really, really well on, like, when she was on her hands and she would then bend at the waist and then twist her legs around, and the rest of her core from her hips to her arms are not moving.
Yeah.
They are not flinching. They don't lean.
She's not shaking.
Move. They do not move. Like, that isolation is incredible.
And the muscle in her leg.
And she does look very tall. Like, her body is very long and lean. And so even though she's only 5'4", which is actually pretty short, she looks like she could be 6 feet tall on there.
Yeah, definitely. So in 1992, while training for the Olympic trials, Betty suffered stress fractures in her L3 and L4 vertebrae.
Oh, no.
So basically, she's got cracks in her spine. The doctors examined her back and ordered her to stop working out. They said one wrong fall, one wrong move, she could break her back. So she did something very dangerous. She took only a brief hiatus, and then she began working out again against her doctor's orders.
Why would... no,
so this
don't
is what,
do that, guys.
Do not encourage your children to do that either. She said about this, quitting did cross my mind several times, but not to the point where I was really serious. It's just that I kept getting injured. Some people said it was my back problems. It came from the rigors of the sport, that I outgrew it. I became real frustrated. The only thing that kept me going was that I always wanted to make it to the Olympic team. I've been drawing those Olympic rings since I was 4 years old. She made up her mind.
That was her goal in life, yeah.
So she didn't make the Olympic trials, but her strong international record helped her earn a spot on the team anyway. So she petitioned to be on the team, she provided her scores, and then she demonstrated privately for 7 judges to qualify to be on the team.
I didn't even know that was like a workaround.
I didn't either, but apparently you can do that.
Well, and I know that there are some folks who come to the Olympics on like the gymnastics team or whatever who are not really medal contenders, but they're good enough to qualify.
She said waiting to hear the news was like the most stressful time of her life. She was waiting to hear if she had gotten on the team. She said for like 3 weeks she wasn't sleeping properly. She found out that she made the team from the TV. Yeah, they didn't even call her and let her know. Yeah, because then they made an announcement and then her name was in there. So then she knew that she was on the team.
Wow, well, congratulations.
So she went to compete in the Olympics in Barcelona in 1992.
Yes, I remember the Barcelona ones.
Despite her injuries, she went on to perform really solid routines. I did see her perform, that move where she was bent and it looked very strong. She did that move again and it was a little
weaker,
you could tell. So her entire team took home the bronze medal, earning the U.S. its first medal in gymnastics as a team. Competing in the Olympics was Betty's dream. However, continuing her competitive gymnastic career was like not in the cards.
No, not with her back problems and stuff.
Yeah, with the fractures in her back.
And this is 1992.
Yes.
She was born in 75?
Yeah, she's 17 at this time.
Oh, geez, that's still quite young.
Very. She had the fractures in her back, and then another injury happened where a tendon pulled away from the bone in her right knee.
Oh, God. Oh, my God. That's disgusting. Oh, my God.
She retired in 1992 at the age of 17. The knee injury required a pin to be surgically put into her knee to hold the tendon in place for it to heal.
Yeah.
So a little recovery time for that. Yeah.
I got to tell you, that kind of stuff makes me like nauseous.
Shake.
Ooh, I can't handle it. That and nerve stuff.
Yeah.
When people talk about nerve stuff, I'm like, get it off. No, I don't want it. I don't want it. Get away from me.
She attended the University of Oklahoma, majoring in broadcast journalism.
Oh.
Yeah. And then she moved to California to pursue a career in acting. So throughout her life, she guest starred in multiple TV shows like The District with Craig T. Nelson, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, what I used to watch, Moesha.
What? I fucking love Moesha.
I'm watching it right now.
Do you love it?
I love it.
Some things are like, gay stuff is bad. Like they did not get it right.
No.
Back then.
No, they did not. She was on MTV's Undressed. That sounds familiar.
Oh my God, I watched that like it was my job.
Was that it was like a soap opera-ish?
Oh, and it was so bad. It was like a half-hour soap opera comedy situation. It was,
and there was like so much sex in it, right?
And it was set in like a college dorm situation. Yes. They would like move from each other's rooms and stuff. Oh, it was terrible. But I was in college at the time, so it was perfect for me. I loved it.
She was also the host of Z Games, which it was on Nickelodeon. Yes. So I'm not really sure what that was. This is all stuff on cable. I didn't have cable.
Oh, they were fun. Well, I only did because I was in college and they had free cable.
She was on the Oprah Winfrey Show. She was on Good Morning America and on American Gladiators. She's also done commercials. She did a movie called Inhuman, and she's been featured in several magazines. She is now a motivational speaker, and she has herself become a coach.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And tapping back into her dance roots, she teaches choreography too.
Tapping right into her roots.
Tapping roots.
That was really accidental.
Oh, I got a snort. Oh,
I never snort.
I'm satisfied
That's
today.
Thing. That is not a me thing.
I know. I snort. You don't snort.
Yeah, that was very funny.
So having been on the demanding side of being the student, she said she wanted to coach in a way that steps away from that and steps away from kids being pushed so hard that they're willing to hurt themselves.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing about Bella Corleone that was like, he was known for, or Corleone. What is his name?
Caroli. I know.
Corleone is from The Godfather. Good God. I actually have, when you're done with this, I want to ask you some questions about him if you can recall.
Okay. Yeah. So she didn't want to be that kind of coach. And she isn't that kind of coach.
He was a bad guy.
Rather, she wanted to uplift, empower, rather than push and demand. She has a website called bettyokino.com where you can take a look at her classes. You can, she created this thing called My Morning Mindset, which is a meditation technique that she's been working on for 15 years.
Whoa.
And it's to help with mental health and emotional stability. So you can go in and it's like 15 minutes and it's a daily 15 minutes. And all you do is you join the class and she'll lead you through this guided meditation. So on her website, she has like a little bio about herself. And she said that she asks herself something. Who am I? It's a great question. And one that I ask myself often, because as we know who we are, we begin to choose who we will become. The gymnastic experience and all of my experiences since have shown me just how much I learned from the sport. It has in since been my greatest teacher. Now I am blessed to be able to return the favor by sharing what I have learned with the next generation. And yeah, if you want to take a peek at her website, you can see the choreography that she teaches. Some of her students, there's photos and stuff of that on there. I got my information from her website, an article by Phil Hirsch from the Chicago Tribune, the Gymnastics Hall of Fame. The video is from YouTube. An article by Mark Preston from the Baltimore Sun. She's got an IMDb profile and Wikipedia.
I am so excited that she was on Moesha. and Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
I know. I watched Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Yeah, I watched every episode of that.
But I'm shocked that I didn't know who she was either, because much like you, I did watch the figure skating. I watched the gymnastics.
I had those girls' pictures on my wall, which gives away some other stuff about me when I was younger.
I just remember enjoying watching, being 1992, I'm what?
I was 9-ish.
Yeah. So I remember watching that and being able to see female athletes and that were younger and look like I could do that.
I could do that. I want to be like that.
Yeah, I could do that. And so it was fun to watch and just to see what the human body can do.
So I remember Bela Karolyi because if I'm remembering correctly, I think something eventually came out about him being a pretty nasty person. I believe there was a TV movie or something made about, maybe it was Carrie Strug.
He was Carrie Strug's coach.
Yeah, and I seem to recall that there's been some speculation about him, and I want to look it up to be sure. We've talked a little bit about the exploitation of young women on the show, and I believe he was pretty well known for that. Let me see here.
I did watch a video with Betty. She addressed the documentary that came out recently called Athlete A. Have you heard about that?
I haven't.
It's about the National Gymnastics Organization and the amount of molestation and rape that happened. And the first person to come out in the court cases was referred to as Athlete A.
Oh.
And so Betty did address that. She watched it. You guys see she was devastated. She was not a victim herself. And so she was like, I was there. I was in that scene. I was around it. And she was heartbroken.
Yeah, this is what I remember about him. So this is from Wikipedia. Several of Karolyi's athletes from the six-pack era have criticized his training methods. Some of his former athletes, including Christy Phillips, Dominique Moceanu, and Erica Stokes, have stated publicly that Karolyi was verbally and psychologically abusive during workouts. He was constantly critical about their weight and body type and drove them to develop eating disorders and low self-esteem.
Ugh.
Some gymnasts, such as Phillips, Moceanu, and the 1988 Olympian Shel Stack, have also said they were compelled to continue training and competing, even with coping with serious injuries such as broken bones. In one interview, Moceanu, who was one of Karolyi's final proteges, said, "I'm sure Bela saw injuries, but if you were injured, Bela didn't want to see it. You had to deal with it. I was intimidated. He looked down on me. He was 6 feet something, and I was 4 foot nothing."
Oh.
He would strictly monitor their food. Moceanu stated that at meets away from home, gymnasts were limited to consuming as few as 900 calories a day.
And they're burning twice that.
Yeah, exactly. They're training for 6 hours. They're burning thousands of calories all day. Even his supporters have admitted that at certain competitions, his gymnasts ate so sparingly that members of the men's gymnastics team smuggled food to them into their hotel rooms.
Oh my gosh.
Nadia Comaneci, who we mentioned in there, she said that she trusted him with her life, that in Romania, the gymnasts at Karolyi schools consumed well-balanced diets and ate better than most other civilians. Mary Lou Retton and some others have also praised his training regimen. But it's like, and in fact, Betty Okino said this: What Bella did worked. He motivated me by getting me mad.
When I was reading through her information, because I was curious about that too, but she never really referred to that. It was almost like she was like, he was helping us. And like her willing to train with a broken back has to be part of the mindset that was being created in that gym.
Yeah, it says that she actually wrote a column rebutting some of the claims that were made about Karolyi. And Okino said this: Karolyi structured his training in a way that built your physical and mental strength to such a remarkable level that even he couldn't tear you down. Bella wanted to know that when push came to shove, his athletes could handle any situation thrown at them. But I do remember hearing from a ton of them that he had been really physically, like psychologically and verbally abusive. It says that Karolyi has not been personally implicated in the USA Gymnastics sex scandal. But it says gymnasts said that many instances of sexual abuse perpetrated by Larry Nassar occurred at the Karolyi ranch.
Oh, no.
Nassar reportedly groomed athletes for abuse and gained their trust in part by covertly providing them with food in defiance of Karolyi's strict dietary guidelines.
This is weird.
So he would starve them, and then Nassar would be like, I'll give you food if you let me do this gross shit to you. Some gymnasts also said that the strict discipline and conditions at the ranch made them feel inhibited from reporting Nassar's abuse.
Yeah.
So as a result of the scandal, the USA Gymnastics was going to buy Karolyi's ranch and decided not to. So in fact, in 2018, they cut ties with the Karolyi ranch altogether.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Have you heard of that documentary and court case?
I know about the whole Nassar thing. I just haven't watched Athlete A, but I read a whole fuck ton about it at the time when it was. I mean, even Simone Biles talked about stuff. I mean, it's pretty
fairly recent.
Yeah.
Betty, what did she say? Oh, I just had something on the tip of my tongue. Oh, Betty was part of the six pack. That was the team that won the medal. That brought home for the USA team.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that first medal in gymnastics for team. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I knew as soon as you started talking about Bella Karolyi, I was like, oh man, there's something else going on there. I remember that. That's what I was trying to say earlier about that. Like the stuff that happens in, I think, especially gymnastics and figure skating, both of them have this really intense, almost secret society type shit happening.
Yeah.
And they're run by men, but they're dependent on women's bodies.
Yeah.
And that is a real fucked up power dynamic that shouldn't be allowed to continue. Mm-hmm. You know, that's why I love that she's a coach.
And creating a new generation. And two, the fact that she's practicing so much mindfulness, it almost seems to me like, I mean, this is what I'm doing in therapy right now. It's like a healing process.
Yeah. Well, and I imagine, I mean, like she obviously didn't find his browbeating as damaging as some of the others. I don't want to be one of those people who's like, oh, we've got to talk about women and be supportive of women and then like deny her experience, right? Mm-hmm. She says that that's not how she felt. Therefore, that's not how it happened for her. Mm-hmm. But I also believe the other athletes.
Oh, yeah.
Like Dominic Moceanu, who was very forthcoming.
And it has happened before too. Like when I've been coached, one person is the star. And then this person gets this kind of attention. This person over here is going to be beaten down to a piece of dust.
And Dominic Moceanu was one of his best athletes. But I remember her she was tiny, fucking tiny.
I remember.
And I remember she had a really good performance once. And I remember watching her come off the beam and he fucking just lit into her on camera.
Whoa.
Which is why when all of that stuff came out, that he was like this abusive, controlling asshole, I was like, I saw it with my own eyes.
Yeah.
He definitely was. I think that like some people were okay with it and some people were not. Mm-hmm. And I think that also has something to do with, the way that your personality deals with other personalities.
Oh yeah, people are all unique. Yeah.
Oh man, but the tie, like I cannot believe, and I will not believe, that people as powerful as Karoli and the other people in charge of USA Gymnastics didn't know what Nassar was doing, what Larry Nassar was doing. And I think that's somehow worse. When you know something's happening and you turn a blind eye.
Yeah.
And allow more and more girls to be abused.
Well, I did that video blog that she did after watching the documentary. Just like the absolute, like, you can just see it on her face. Yeah. Of just, I couldn't imagine being part of something and then realizing that all that was going on around you.
Right.
But she is a coach now. Hopefully it looks like she's taking care of her students.
I think that's kind of one of the things that needs to happen. There needs to be more women in positions of power who are not beholden to men.
Yeah.
Because like you can have women in positions of power who are still cozying up to the bad men who run things.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah.
We see that all the time.
Yes.
Ugh, Dianne Feinstein. Did you see her a couple weeks ago?
Yes.
Oh my God. Lindsey Graham did such a good job. I love him so much. I'm going to hug him without a mask on. You fucking idiot. Anyway, that's a side story, but I think it's all related in terms of like we have an accidental theme for today's show, which is that there are these men who get to do whatever they want.
Yeah.
And everybody else works a lot. Like women's bodies are working harder and women are working harder and not getting the recognition.
Yeah.
So we're here to change that. Help us out.
Well, we'd like to thank our editor, Lucas McIntyre.
Thank you, Lucas. We'll also love to thank you guys for your support. Don't forget we are on Patreon.
Thank you so much.
And follow us on Instagram and Facebook. We're also on Twitter, but it's very sad. We hardly ever tweet.
I don't know how to tweet.
Yeah, you'll know that I am the only one running the Twitter account, and that is also why there's nothing on it, because I don't have anything to say.
All right. On that note.
We also want to thank Jennifer Finch of L7 for our lovely theme music. Don't forget to buy the album Hungry for Stink if you want more kick-ass music.
Till next time.
Till next time.
Bye-bye.